Welcome back, one and all. This is your boy Hollister MacIntyre here to kind of recap the Season 3 offseason for the Salt Lake City Flyers, as first thing's gotta be getting a new coach. Matt Hedrick was just terrible for us for 3 years, and we looked to get Mike Tomlin, and I tried to offer him $6 million for 2 years, and let's just say that's a little too lowball for a coach of his caliber. So guess what that meant? Yep, we're gonna have to go back with Matt Hedrick. This time it's gonna be a 1-year offer. We're gonna give him $6 million, overpay for sure, but that's what it is. Austin Belton wins Offensive Rookie of the Year, and on Offensive Rookie of the Year for the AFC, it's Bryce Richardson, who we also contemplated drafting. Jeffrey O'Sullivan, another one of our draft picks, wins Defensive Rookie of the Year, and actually word around camp is he is a star now. Like, he might be one of the top stars in the NFL. Cowboys are your Super Bowl champions over the Patriots in a record-breaking rating Super Bowl. And then Danny Amendola would retire from the NFL, unfortunately, even though we had him for 1 more year. And that meant we were now looking for a new slot receiver. Well, how about a slot cornerback? We look to make Malcolm Butler an offer. And Eric Berry, we look to also make an offer. And I'm trying to keep the guaranteed money pretty low for these guys, and unfortunately, some of them just aren't landing. Joe Dahl, tried to make him an offer, about $5 million with no guarantee. Danny Shelton, we tried to make an offer. He had a pretty good year. He gets about $3 million guaranteed. Deshaun Hand, we try to make him an offer for 2 years. We're going for about 5 total of that being guaranteed out of 23 total. And we go ahead and send this offer, and another swing and a miss as far as re-signing our players. And now I'm looking to franchise tag. Could bring back Danny Shelton, and that is exactly what we do, is we tag Danny Shelton. Looking in free agency, we need a fullback. Patrick Ricard is one of the top fullbacks in the league. We're going to go ahead and send him an offer. He is a really good blocker. Almost could play tight end, you think, and lineman. So we send him a pretty generous offer. Linval Joseph, just to beef up the line with Danny Shelton. I think that would be a pretty good 1-2 punch at nose tackle. So we're going to send 1 year, $3 million of that being guaranteed to him. And then Xavier Woods, we're going to make an offer as well. 2 years was what I was looking for. Didn't want to send him any guaranteed, just because we weren't sure if we'd keep him around. And about maybe $3 million salary per year, maybe up to $5 million. Ended up being a $10 million offer with none guaranteed. Wasn't a super well-loved contract from him. Eric Berry, we try to reach out to. Again, another non-guaranteed contract, just because we're not sure he'll be on the roster. And he likes that deal. Matt Bosher, 1 year, and we're going to look to give him a about $2 to $3 million contract. We're going to round out about 2.95. And going further, we're looking to get a backup quarterback, and Jalen Hurts, I thought, was an upgrade from Tyler Huntley, but provided a similar play style that we could really use as a backup. So I know you need to pay your quarterbacks here, and we're going to look to give Jalen Hurts a pretty lucrative deal. Looks for about $7 million for 2 years, and then $5 million over those 2 years guaranteed. Damian Harris could have been a pretty good 3rd or 4th string running back for us, so we're going to look to pick him up on a pretty cheap dime for 2 years, and no guaranteed money for him as well. That'll end up about $6 million. And then we need a wide receiver, especially with the loss of Danny Amendola. Now, this isn't as much of a slot guy, more of an X or a Y or a Z, but Mohamed Sanu is who I look to pick up. Checked with coach, he was good with that, and we offer him about $6.5 million. Continuing, we need to buff up our offensive line, and Connor Williams is pretty much the best available. Unfortunately, we're running out of cap, and this is really the last offer we can make, and Connor Williams is the best chance we have. He's not great, but he will be good depth at the very least. So we're going to try to offer him around $13 to $13.5 million over 2 years, with around 1/4 to 1/3 of that guaranteed. Trying to make it work within the cap, we would ultimately end up with just under $13 million. It's going to end up being just about 12, I think. And looking at who would accept, Jalen Hurts would accept the contract. Connor Williams and Linval Joseph both also would accept their contracts. So a lot of depth. We add depth at quarterback. We add depth at nose tackle. We add depth on the offensive line. Eric Berry, Damian Harris, and Patrick Ricard would also accept. Now, of course, that meant Xavier Woods did not accept. So we'd look to pick up another safety, and we'd have to spend a little less. Deron Herman was the choice. And Deron Harmon would accept, as well as Damian Harris. So then we would go to the draft. Now, in the draft, we had the number 1 pick, and this one was pretty much a no-brainer. All season long, he'd been touted as the number 1 pick, and he proved it at Alabama. Name of Chance Fortunata, but he did have some pretty good competition right next to him. Kevin Wooden, an offensive lineman, was really, really solid, really getting a lot of praise from college coaches and scouts alike. And then we also had Nathan Ridley from North Carolina, another edge rusher, more of a 4-3 or 3-4 edge rusher, that is. Whereas Chance Fortunata, we might try him at the edge rusher if we were to get him, but he would ultimately maybe be more of a 3-4 linebacker. So we go ahead, and with this selection, it was a no-brainer. Dominated at the combine, dominated in college. Chance Fortunata was my pick, and Chance Fortunata instantly was getting tons of social media hits. Everybody's excited to see this kid play. I'm excited too. Chance Fortunata, welcome to the squad. What a dominant pass rusher, and I am so excited to see him in action. So going further, Nathan Ridley would be the 2nd pick, and he was another really solid pick. You really couldn't go wrong with either of these guys. I just think that Chance Fortunata was a better player. Kevin Wooden goes 3rd to the Texans, and he, again, solid player. And then we finally have a quarterback taken at pick 4, Jay Stannis, to the Saints, which is interesting considering they already have Eric Devlin and Jameis Winston. Denzel Hazlitt would go 5th, and Denzel Hazlitt was just a dominant running back. If we needed running back and we didn't have DeAndre Swift, I would have considered him. DeMarcus Lacey gets taken, and, we see basically our next pick. So with pick 2, or round 2, pick 1, Matthew Beard was a guy I looked at, and we'd go ahead and pull the trigger on him. A power back that we really lacked at Salt Lake City last year. We had DeAndre Swift, but we didn't have a power back, and I know we signed Damian Harris in the offseason, but Matthew Beard, more of a strict power back, not really able to be run in 3rd down situations, but really excited to see him play. He's 21 years old out of LSU, and he is just a freight train runner. So we'll see what he can do. And moving on in round 3 with the first pick yet again, we would look here and basically see what is available. Mitchell Flaherty was someone I'd been kind of keeping my eye on. He was kind of graded as higher than mock drafts had given him. We could take another running back, but I didn't think we needed that. There was a fullback, Vinny Weaver, I was interested in. We had Ben Goddard and a few other wide receivers that were intriguing. But, it's kind of hard to pass on an offensive lineman when they are that talented. Although there were 2 more nose tackles that I was interested in getting, Von McDougal and Arthur Love. And really the decision kind of came down to one of those 2 nose tackles and then one of the offensive linemen. We had a free safety that was intriguing. Of course, there's a kicker we've been looking at all season, Ricky Rubini, who made a lot of his kicks in college. Mitchell Flaherty would end up being our pick, and Mitchell Flaherty was a really solid pick. Everybody was pretty high on that one. Salt Lake City was tweeting, fans were tweeting and saying they really liked that pick. He is out of Clemson, really powered a good run game for Clemson, and going well with Matthew Beard, both very power-heavy runners and run blocking. So going further in the 3rd round with pick 7, we have a lot of picks. Braxton Berry actually getting picked by UC Irvine, the strong-arm gunslinger there. Didn't really get to look at him a whole lot in the FCS. Trey Harris was someone I was interested in picking. We needed safety eventually. I know we just signed Deron Harmon, and we also have safeties on the come up. But Trey Harris was someone I thought would be a pretty good pick. And then I looked further down, and I thought, what could potentially pair with Chance Fortunata on the defensive line? And nose tackle is that. So really, it's a question of, do we want to bolster our secondary, or do I want to go with Arthur Love or Von McDougal and get more of a dominating defensive line? The choice was not easy. let's just say there were a lot of good players. We still had Ricky Rubini, a kicker, who, you know, you never know when someone's going to take a flyer on a kicker that could end up being a good kicker for the next few years. We had wide receivers like Ben Goddard. Ultimately, it ended up being a defensive pick for me. And Trey Harris, we went with the secondary pick. Trey Harris, really good in run support. Not as much of a hybrid safety, which is okay. He's a free safety. Want to bolster his zone a little bit, but we'll see what he can do. Going on further, we have round 4, the first pick. And really just looking through here, not quite sure with pick 128 what I want to take. Still thinking probably nose tackle. There are some wide receivers that are really interesting, and we do need some extra depth in the wide receiver room. But again, you really can't help but want to bolster this defense as much as you can. And then a surprising take here, Martin Weston. I'm not sure if wires got crossed. I was looking to take Arthur Love with this pick, the nose tackle, and instead our drafting guy picked Martin Weston. I'm not sure if there was a glitch with the phone, but you know, we'll see if he can turn out to be at least some depth. It was an incident, but it happens. So we wanted to trade right back into the 4th round to pick up our guy, and we trade Tyler Huntley and a 7th round pick for a 4th round pick, giving some backup room to the Saints. At quarterback, I know they did just draft Jay Stannis, but you never know. So now we could go get our guy, and Arthur Love was who I was looking to get. Ben Goddard still also a really interesting pick, and we would actually take Ben Goddard here. I know we've been talking about Arthur Love, but Ben Goddard really just leapt at me out of nowhere. Another player out of LSU, 21 years old, and really good slot receiver. So with the 5th round first pick, this is where I knew we couldn't pass on Arthur Love again. He'd already fallen a little bit. I know some mock drafts had him in the 7th round, but Arthur Love was a guy I felt like was worthy of taking now. I went ahead and relayed that. He's from Notre Dame, and the pick was in, and it was a pretty solid pick. You know, I think it's going to really help us on defense maintain the run game while we have pass rushing in Chains Fortunata and Jeffrey O'Sullivan. In the 6th round with the 3rd pick, here you really can't get too picky. You got to take what you need. And Ricky Rubini still on the board. Fortunately, no kickers taken yet. He was projected to get drafted at some point, but we'd go ahead and draft Ricky Rubini. We'll see if he can be the kicker of the future. Hopefully a more Justin Tucker type, but we'll see. And then finally, we would go ahead and make a trade to get into the Mr. Irrelevant conversation. We trade the last pick for one of our practice squad players that we just signed. And we were in the running for Mr. Irrelevant. Looking at the draft board, all we had left was a punter, which we also needed with the departure of our last punter. And Matthew Cartwright was the pick here from UMass. We go ahead and make it, and now at least we have special teams players. Looking back on the draft, Nathan Ridley, really impressed with him. I wish there was a world in which I could have gotten him and Chance Fortunato to pair on both edges. Unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. Kevin Wooden, another really solid pick. Interested to see what he can do with the Houston Texans. Unfortunately, we couldn't get him. Jay Stannis, a questionable quarterback pick. Again, a pretty weak quarterback class, though. So we'll see what he can do with the Saints. A lot of competition in that QB room. And then Denzel Haswitt, who I was really wanting to get. Unfortunately, he was just way too high up on boards, and it's hard to see why he wasn't or wouldn't be with how good he was. Kenny Durkins, the other edge rusher from Alabama, really wanted to get him to pair with his teammate, Chance Fortunata. Unfortunately, he does not go to us. He does not slide that far down. Braxton Berry also did not fall to where we could pick him in the 2nd round, which is fine. I wouldn't have wanted to pick him anyway. Strong-armed gunslinger out of UC Irvine. I think the Eagles might have a QB of the future here. Derek Flax, picked by Jacksonville. Another quarterback who I think was interesting out of Rutgers. He's more of a runner. Very unrefined, but I think he has a lot of upside if you can kind of refine some of the points of his game. He's got the natural talent. It's more of a question of can he learn the game plan. So let's jump into a little preseason here, as my newly drafted team would be going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Without Tom Brady, of course. We'll see here. Out would come Austin Belton, and we would just get to see a little bit of the preseason action, as Jack Spitzer is one of the quarterbacks on the Buccaneers. We'll go ahead and hand it off on first down to DeAndre Swift, and Swift, 11 yards on his first run of the year. I'm really excited for him. I think he's going to have a big breakout season. Going to test a little bit of Austin Belton's arm here as he'll throw it to Ben Goddard, the rookie who might be starting at slot. Actually, a little shocking there. Good pass, good catch. RPO now to Ben Goddard, and Goddard has a lot of room in front of him. He's really good with the ball in his hands after he catches it. He's good at making a lot of guys miss. So, 2nd and 10. One guy we haven't seen yet is Mohamed Sanu. We'll see if he can make any big adjustments and impacts in our offense as DeAndre Swift with the out of the backfield catch and touchdown. Really hoping to see him have a huge campaign this year. He starts it off with a touchdown there. Let's hand it off to Matthew Beard, the running back out of LSU, who we drafted 2nd overall. Really good run from him there. Let's hand it off to him again. And how about this? A lot of room in front of him. That's a 9-yard run. Not the fastest guy, but again, hard to bring down. 1st and 10, going to hand it off to him one more time on a stretch play out of all things. Picks up 10 yards there, though, and gets a 1st down. One thing about this offense is we are more of a vertical zone running team. You don't see a lot of power running from this team, as we're going to hand it off to Beard once again. Another great run. But when you do see us power run, I feel like we've got some of the personnel to pull that off. Let's hand it off to Beard here, and Beard just moving his legs, you know, a lot of his runs have been open, but that doesn't change the fact that he's running the well, he's hitting holes correctly, and he's just hard to bring down. He falls forward. Now, 1st and goal, as we will see Hurts check in here, and Hurts going to find Ben Goddard for Ben Goddard's 1st touchdown in the NFL. Of course, it's not officially technically in the NFL, but it is preseason. So Hurts, you know, we'll see what he can bring to this team. Hopefully we don't have to see him a whole lot. Not that I think he's bad, as Matthew Beard just bowling over a defender there to pick up a 1st down. I don't think Hurts is bad, I just think Belton's that much better. You know, you don't want to lose your starter, but worst case scenario, I think Hurts will be a good player. And look at this on defense here, as this is going to be a pick by Coleman sitting right there. All started with Arthur Love, actually, off the defensive line, forcing his lineman into the ground, just knocking him on his butt, and then Spitzer throwing an ill-advised pass to Coleman. Now in the goal line, hand it off to our big boy Matthew Beard, and he'll pick up a touchdown. Might see some Matthew Beard at fullback, as we're going to go ahead and transition to the 2nd preseason game now. Hand off to DeAndre Swift, and Swift just too fast for defenses. Man, he is so good. DeAndre Swift with a rushing touchdown. And Washington trots out. You know, they are a decent team, but bam! Getting brought down there by Jeffrey O'Sullivan, the reigning defensive rookie of the year out of the NFC. And, you know, Washington is just a middle-of-the-road team. You hope you can beat them. As we see in the 4th quarter, we've already got our subs in, of course. Not going to be starters that late. Hand off to him here. Matthew Beard picking up about 10 yards there, and that's going to make it 1st and goal. Now 2nd down and goal. Going to be under center. Hand off to Matthew Beard. Beard untouched in the end zone. Beard having a really good preseason so far. A lot of his runs, you know, are just following his blockers correctly. But, again, he's hard to bring down. Now 1st and 10, down 9 points. Hurts going to roll out here. Not a lot open. He's going to throw this one last second to Delonte Turk, who actually might have gotten demoted. I'm not sure. I think Ben Goddard might have taken his role. So here we go now in the Miami preseason game, as we'll just go ahead and finish this off. You know, it's funny, preseason did not go well for this team, despite a lot of exciting new faces and a lot of exciting players. And, you know, we might see that go into the season a little bit. So let's go ahead and get past this, as Miami would take the win here. We saw Dante Pettis coming up big as usual, and that would be a loss. In the regular season, we would lose to them as well, and unfortunately, Miami would just have our number. It seems like Tua Tagovailoa is really just the player of the future they've been looking for. He's turned out to be that guy, and unfortunately, we are just not seeing quite the same from our team. Now against the 49ers and Denzel Hazwit, who I was really excited to see in action. Got to see this one in person in San Francisco. We're going to find Ben Goddard on a first possession there, and Ben Goddard gets a touchdown. He, you know, up to this point of the year, that's his first receiving touchdown of the year. officially in the regular season. Of course, he's had a pretty good season catching the ball in his 2 games. And then we're going to find Dante Pettis for a score and signs of life in Salt Lake City, but we'll find ourselves down 6, of course, in the 4th quarter. So, unfamiliar territory? Not necessarily. Salt Lake City's been here a lot. Austin Belton, let's see if he can lead a comeback drive, as he does manage to find Ben Goddard really far down the field there, and Goddard still making a big impact. That's going to be 1st down, and now 1st and goal with 2 minutes remaining in the game. We're going to hand it off to DeAndre Swift, and Swift will go ahead and score to put us up 4 points, pending the extra point, which we would hit. Of course, that was too much time, though. San Francisco and Jimmy Garoppolo just had way too much time, as Garoppolo finds his tight end just wide open. I'm not sure where our safety was there, and San Francisco would come away with a win. Following that, we try to go ahead and re-sign Justin Coleman for the upcoming season, looking to give him around $7 million non-guaranteed and about $4.5 million guaranteed. He accepts that, and so at least we can keep one of our best defensive players. So up to this point, we've lost a lot of games. We're now in week 7, which is a bye week, and on to week 8. We sim past week 8, and of course, I wasn't there, but we get blown out by Green Bay, one of our division rivals. And this team is just not doing well. We won 3 of our first 4 games, and things were on an upward swing. And since then, we have just been dropping games left and right. Looks like we're back to the usual for this team. Really just a lot of inexperience, I think. I think we've got the talent at this point. It's just inexperience that's unfortunately not letting us reach our max potential. So we're going to keep going in the season here. Let me just break down things that happened. We pick up another win against the Eagles. We're up to 4 wins on the season. So, hey, we eclipsed last season. That's impressive. Chains Fortunata continuing to show a lot of development here, as word is that he is the X factor on this team. Really good player. He's been dominating so far. Really excited to see Chains Fortunata. One thing I've noticed is that maybe I need to have a talk with our GM and some of our coaches here. I think he might be more of an outside linebacker, an edge rusher from a 3-4 defense rather than an edge rusher from a 4-3 is kind of the difference here. It's just, I think he can do more even. So going forward, a loss to the reigning champs, the Cowboys, a loss to the Saints, who are, trying to figure out the quarterback situation. What a joke. Let's go ahead and finish out the season here against the Green Bay Packers, and yet another loss. So hey, we got 4 wins. That's an improvement. That's better than last year. 3 is worse than 4. We pretty much have not done better than 4 games at our time between Detroit and Salt Lake City, which is pretty embarrassing. But I expect more in this next season. So one thing for sure is Matt Hedrick's not coming back. Jason Brooke is someone that word around the league would be a pretty good hire for us. I'd make him an offer 3 years for $15 million, and thankfully he would accept. So no more Matt Hedrick, no more terrible coach. Let's go ahead and get past the Super Bowl here, and your reigning champs would be defeated in the Super Bowl by the Indianapolis Colts by 6 points, and that would be on to free agency. So here we're doing the re-signing. TJ Hawkinson, I wasn't sure if I wanted to bring him back or not. I tried to give him 3 years, a pretty team-friendly deal, and he just wasn't going for it. I don't blame him, but I wasn't wanting to pay him the big bucks because he hasn't produced to that level yet. Amani Oruwariye, we tried to go ahead and sign, and he was good with it. Jelani Tavai, I definitely wanted to retain him. I know Mitch Newman is our guy, but Jelani Tavai has been a pretty solid centerpiece for us. Good off-ball linebacker, and he's good with staying as well. So now it came down to franchise tagging TJ Hawkinson, which I was all too okay with doing. Give him a tag, or maybe trade him. We'll see how he's doing next year. In free agency, we look at Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell, really solid wide receiver that hasn't gotten a ton of opportunity yet. I felt like he could be more of a Z for us. Dante Pettis could maybe move to a more X role. And then we would just need to sign, a Y, or look to trust Ben Goddard to be our Y of the future. Kenny Vaccaro for some safety depth was someone I thought would be a pretty good choice. Patrick Peterson, we needed a good cornerback, and Patrick Peterson definitely could help puff up our cornerback room. And then Rashawn Gary, I thought he'd be a pretty good edge rusher. He's definitely more of a power rusher, which is great on the left side of the field there. And he has proven a lot of strength in the run game as well. So really happy to pick him up and bolster both sides of our defense there. I'm looking to offer him about $6 million guaranteed and about $12 million maybe non-guaranteed. We'll see if he accepts that. So going further, we would go ahead and look to sign Danny Shelton. I know this isn't a re-signing, but we've had him for quite a while now, and we'd look to go ahead and sign him as our nose tackle again. And fortunately, all of these offered signees would go ahead and sign. Kenny Vaccaro, Parrish, Paris Campbell, just a lot of really good picks here. Tyler Huntley, we would look to bring back as our backup quarterback. As well as Jalen Hurts, just another Jalen Hurts-esque type quarterback, and we'd offer him no guaranteed money. We want to just see what he can do in preseason before we make sure and commit to him. Same with Vinny Weaver. I want to see what he can do in the preseason. We thought about drafting him last year. We're going to go ahead and bring him on out of free agency, a UDFA, and we'll give him no guaranteed as well. And of course, seeing as that's the only option they really have, they will accept. On to the draft here, and the Dolphins have the first pick. Somehow somebody was worse than us. We end up with the second pick. Dolphins, Cole Bright is the best player in this draft, and Cole Bright you may have seen in the Olympia Dynasty. Cole Bright, really solid player out of Oklahoma from Haltom, Texas. Would not go first overall. Ramon Hurts would, and I think that was a pretty good pick, honestly. Really hoping to see Cole Bright get picked up somewhere. John Westerman is somebody I thought about picking as an edge rusher. Think it could have been a pretty solid selection. Tony Griffin as well. Really solid picks here. AJ Montague. We needed safety depth. We needed a new strong safety. Sammy Blake was an interesting elusive back. I know he might not be quite to Denzel Hazlitt's level, but he was a really solid player. And we need an elusive back, to back up DeAndre Swift. Matthew Wofford was a pretty good cornerback that I thought about picking. And, I really wasn't sure who to take here. Jay Terry was someone that really intrigued me at nose tackle. I know we just taken Arthur Love. We would go ahead and make Jay Terry our number 2 overall pick. And I know fans were a little questionable about this. He's a really good run stopper with upside to go at pass rushing. But that was the pick. And then John Westerman would go, and maybe I made a mistake, but that's okay. We'll see. I think he's going to be a good pickup. Going forward, we can see some of the guys being taken that I was looking at taking, like Matthew Wofford. And then we have the second round pick. This is going to be pick 34. I would look to go ahead and take someone like Sammy Blake here, and that is exactly what I told our team to go ahead and do, is take Sammy Blake, the elusive running back out of Alabama. We're going to have a lot of SEC backs in the backfield here, and of course a lot of players from Alabama on the roster, go figure. And really, Sammy Blake, not great as a third down back or under center, as we see Ezekiel Roberts being taken here out of Olympia College, being taken to the Washington team with the 14th pick in the second round, so that's going to be pick 46 overall. Good for him. So with our third round second pick, Bradley Fisher, an interesting pick here, could be the guy. He's fallen a little bit, so we go ahead and take him. Good pick for the value. We have just a good value pick. Will give us depth in the future as Cole Bright gets taken by the Buccaneers, who already had Jack Spitzer, but Cole Bright is now going to be their future. Prince Lofatau out of Olympia gets taken by the Dallas Cowboys with the 31st pick in the third round. So how about that? A lot of picks there. 95th pick for Prince Lofatau. Now we're looking to pick in the fourth round here with the second overall pick. Antoine Watts is another edge rusher that I'm seriously considering, and we go ahead and reach out to him, pick him up. Of course, we just wanted some depth. Kosi Mensah would be our next pick as well. Kosi Mensah out of Olympia. We needed a fullback to replace Vinny Weaver. I wasn't impressed with, even though we signed him. And how about Dusty Hale going to the Seattle Seahawks? Dusty Hale, another Olympia College product. They've actually had their names called 4 times this season, or this draft so far. And potentially a 5th pick here for Olympia College as Lance Roach is on the board. Now, this would be a reach if I were to take Lance Roach here in the 6th round with our second pick. But, it's an interesting pick. And Lance Roach is the pick we make. It was considered a reach. Nobody knew who this guy was, surprisingly. But, I look at him and I think, here's a guy that could play out of the slot, and here's a guy that could also play running back some. Maybe a Cordarrelle Patterson type. As we trade to the Colts for Mr. Irrelevant, we're going to trade Jalen Hurts for some future draft capital and Mr. Irrelevant. And here I'll take Josh Greenwood. I really liked what I saw from him. A really good slot receiver that could also potentially play a little bit of Z. And we're going to go ahead and pick him up. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. The new season will be starting soon with week 1. I will see you all later.